Buddycast.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the founder and host of Buddycast, Nick Sorensen.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of everybody's favorite show, Buddycast. I'm your host, Nick Sorensen. Thank you for joining us on this Wednesday evening. It's been a while. I know. Quit yelling at me. Quit getting mad. I've been a busy buddy. Trust me. Life. You all get it. And if you don't, you'll get it eventually. But, it's been crazy over here. But I finally found some time. I finally found a good buddy to help me bring back the show again. We're getting back into the rhythm of things. So be patient with us. Be kind. Be loving. Be a buddy, for crying out loud. But on that note, we have a new buddy making his first Buddycast appearance ever. We have my buddy Angus Thorn. Angus and I, whoops, there he is. I'm a magician. I make him disappear.
I'm back.
Angus and I met at Erie's local comedy club, Keller's. He's a terrific guy. He's just as kind as he is on stage, off stage. He had me in tears laughing when I saw him the first time. So I'm like, I got to get this guy on my show. But I give you my buddy and comedian, Angus Thorn. How you doing, Angus?
I'm great. Thanks for bringing me on here, Nick. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you for being a buddy on Buddycast. You're not a guest on the show. You're a buddy.
Love it. The world needs actually that kind of positivity. Honestly, I think too many people don't pay enough attention to one another. And I think there's a lot to be said about those of us that live in the live comedy realm. We deal with people, but we have correct interactions. Nothing comes from a point of hate or anything. And I think more people need to really open up and lighten up.
Mm-hmm. And that was the point of Buddycast starting. More people meet more buddies. That was Buddycast started during the pandemic.
Okay.
When, you probably saw firsthand. Everything was getting canceled. Everything was shutting down, and it seemed as if though you greeted someone on the street just saying, "Hi, how are you?" and they greeted you with a gesture and an unkind word back. Something like
that old time-honored chestnut gesture that we all know and love is like, oh, okay.
Reminding you that you're number one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. So, but we're getting into the weeds of comedy here, Angus. What sparked your interest in comedy?
My existence, honestly. I always found entertainment interesting from a very young age. I started watching things like Radio City Music Hall, like when I was very young, and then I would end up seeing different comedians. I don't know if it was nice because my father would show me like these comedians like Robin Williams and Richard Pryor and things like that, that, maybe a 10-year-old shouldn't see, but like I learned a lot about even though I didn't understand really what was being said, I learned a lot about the way it was being said, the presentation that went along with it, because and I said, man, actually my first joke, I think we said it was about 4 or 5 years old. And, I was sitting there and we were watching, I believe it was Robin Williams, and he's running back and forth across the stage, and he had the suspenders. This was, an older thing. And, and, cause we did have cable. I was lucky enough that we would see these things. And, I said, man, they have that stool and they never use it. I want to be a stand-up, sit-down comedian. And I thought that was funny at like 5 years old, and of course my grandparents laughed, because I think they were being polite. But like I always wanted to be on stage. But I never thought it would be possible. But the spark was always there, and then an opportunity came along when I was much older to like give it a go. Kind of like you said, during not during the pandemic, but I worked through the pandemic, and then when it got better, I said, there's got to be there's got to be something better with life. Like I was having trouble, like just feeling like I was getting anything out of life. So I took a chance doing some open mics, and I was like, oh my gosh, I love this, you know? And then I just kept doing it. And I managed to get into a place where I was able to put away some money, and I can dedicate some time to it now. And we're going to see where it goes.
Nice. Now, you talked about Robin Williams in that last answer. Who are some of your comic idols or heroes? Who are some people that you look up to, even to this day?
My first and foremost is Chris Farley. To this day, like, I remember seeing Tommy Boy when I was about 9 years old, and from that movie, it sparked my interest to continue seeing, and I would watch on SNL, and I would see the other films, you know, and huge influence on just how important comedy can be to someone's actual existence. Mm-hmm. You know, Chris Farley would have been an amazing dramatic actor had he gotten those roles too. He was just a born showman. Huge influence. Like I said, Richard Pryor, huge influence, because he taught me there was a stage presence that Pryor had that no other comedian has. There was a way that he didn't ask for permission for any joke that no other comedian has. You know, Robin Williams, again, energy, very similar. They were close. They were part of that same knit. You know, it's a lot of the comics that influence me are those that took what was conventional and protected what came before, and then added what else is considered comedy, but did it in a way that is good for the art. You know, Lenny Bruce, Don Rickles, you know, like I said, Richard Pryor, George Carlin, Sam Kinison, Ralphie May, you know, and then even today, you know, Matt Rife and Anthony Jeselnik and Nick Swartzen and Adam Sandler and Tim Meadows, and, you know, so many influences from not only sketch comedy, but from stand-up comedy. And it's so, comedy is so broad. And I love that question, because it's like, I really feel that comedy is what keeps the world spinning. So to say that I have one favorite, you can't. The influence comes from, and there'll be people that aren't even famous that I'll see on Instagram that it's like, man, they nailed like a punchline in such a way that it's like they're an influence, you know? So it's like, you know, the big ones, it's easy to talk about because everybody's aware of them. And sure, of course I have them, you know,
right.
But the influences continue to come every day, and they come from people that I do open mics with every week. They'll come from influences that I'll get from you when we'll just be talking, you know, at the club, you know, and
right.
That's where the influence comes from, you know, as long as I'm not stealing from somebody, you know, the techniques that we have are just that. They're a comedic structure, and we can share different aspects of what makes certain things work, you know. Exactly. And I love that that'll continue to be, you know.
Exactly. I like what you said about like the uprising comedians. Like, yeah, everyone has, you know, you can call them like the saints of comedy. You know, everyone, even if you ask non-comedy fans, who are some of your favorite comedians? They're going to list off the same people. Robin Williams, so-and-so, all that stuff. But you mentioned like there are uprising people who are doing this stuff every day that one day, you know, like people like the legends didn't just jump on camera and be like, hey, I'm funny now. I'm a legend now. They worked their way up. That's what these people are doing. But you also mentioned Chris Farley, and that sparked a question in my head. What was it like doing the same show with his brother Kevin in Erie a couple of weeks ago?
Give me a minute to catch my breath. Even like the thought of that, Nick, to think that happened in my life is unreal. Yeah, I couldn't be more grateful that comedy allowed that to happen, you know. And I met him 10 years ago when I wasn't even doing comedy. I met him when it was juniors.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I have a picture together, you know. I still had hair. Okay. You know, and you know, I even said briefly there, you know, because I didn't want to like just be like, my God, your brother was an influence, you know, like, because I'm sure he gets it and I think he knows it, you know. But he was always an influence too, and his brother John and Tom Jr., you know, were also influences. John was in Happy Gilmore too recently.
Hmm.
You know, and like, you know, John worked with Sandler and stuff, and you can see them together sometimes. John and Kevin were in Black Sheep when he was bouncing, when he was like, "You're gonna want to move out of the way right now," and they're like, "Where'd you learn to move like that?" And the two that ask him are actually his brother Kevin and his brother John, and he's like, the bounce off Laguna Beach '87. He's like, "Is that the one Mr. T hosted?" He's like, "Yeah, very same." Like, you know, but those were his brothers.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, it's just to be able to share that stage, just to be in the space, was like, thank you. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like, thanks for real awesome, down to earth, genuine, real person, and as funny as Chris. Like,
Love.
his timing was great. You know, it's like when he was telling that story, you know, telling some of the jokes about his family and growing up, it's like you still you saw it. You know that that was real through and through. And that a comic like that can't be beaten. A genuine comic that can be funny about the things that we all experience is by far the longest lasting, I
That's
think.
one thing I love about comedy is when you can relate to the audience, when you can give them situations. They laugh because it's true. They laugh because they've been there. They've been in your shoes. And that's what they'll remember, because they'll remember it every time. Like, you tell a joke about your brother or something. You tell a joke about being the middle child. You tell a joke about just something relatable. You tell a joke about being married. They're gonna go home. They're gonna go home. Their wife's gonna ask them, "How was the show?" And they're just gonna start laughing because that joke's gonna pop into their head.
Mm-hmm.
So, but hey, you worked with Kevin. Who are some other notable comedians you have performed with?
Michael Chiselka, I performed with in Ohio, and he's really good in the World Series of Comedy. He was in the top 101. He was second place last year overall. Really funny individual from the Cleveland area, which is very cool. Let's see, Tom Arnold last weekend. I did a little bit of hosting with Tom and Max Micel, which two very, very talented comics, you know, and it was very nice to have them come into Erie. But other than that, I mean, I've worked with a lot of notable local comics, Bill Squire, and a lot of those from the, you know, because they're the ones that are still accessible that I could see regularly and learn from regularly, you know. And the Cleveland and Ohio comedy area is it's really good. It's a unique dynamic, I think. Before we get too far into it, but it's like, it's a unique dynamic when you go from city to city, and I think we're going to explore that a little bit. But yeah, you know, a lot of the ones that I see now, famous, like what you would call superstars, no, not really. But that's not what really does it for me. You know, is it cool when I get to do that? Sure. But, you know, again, I think you understand, you know, and a lot of comics are going to understand that. Look at this. It's cool getting to meet them, but again, what you learn from them is the most important thing, and you have to still be good on your own, because it can't be like, well, I need to get a gig because I worked with Kevin Farley, you know what I mean? Like, you still have to be good on your own, and that's how you get there, you know. So it's like, it's cool to work with them, but you have to stay humble, you know.
Exactly. You still have to keep working as if though you're still at like open mic level. You can't keep. Like, oh, you opened ones for Kevin Hart or something, and that's your ticket to fame. You once opened for Kevin Hart, and you said you were funny. That's it. That's what I'm writing. Now,
Well, if we don't keep
Kevin Hart says the guy down the street's funny.
well, if we don't keep working on it, we're really you don't get any better than open mic level, because then you don't really have. You could write jokes all day, and I could talk into a microphone, but if they don't become coherent, if they don't become a story, if they don't become relatable, or they have a flow, then I might as well just wait and do 5 minutes every week.
Exactly. So, hey, that brings up my next question. Give me talk about your first, like your first open mic, your first paid gig, your first room laugh. Like, give me some first memories that you have.
Okay, so my first open mic was in a place in Cuyahoga Falls, Ohio, called the Funny Stop. And the only reason I thought of going there was because I was nervous about doing comedy at home. Okay, it's like, I don't know, I don't know if I'm gonna do this or like it, or And so I went there, and I'm like, I told a friend of mine who was from that area, and he was like, "Oh, I used to work there years ago." Blah blah blah. And so I did this, and the first one I didn't bomb, but it was like I didn't really know how to do comedy. You know what I mean? Like, I wrote some jokes that I knew would make people laugh, because that I can do, but I didn't know how to deliver them, and so I'm up there just kind of like, here's my set, like I was reading and it seemed like, in my head, it was like, joke number 1. Okay. And, and then when I got through, I got the applause, and I was like, that wasn't terrible, so I kept coming back, and I made some friends, people that I knew. And then, like one night they'd be like, oh, there's an open mic here. Like at the beginning, I was doing like one open mic a week. That was it, and I was like just trying to do this, and I didn't really know anything else. And then I just started doing different open mics, and someone told me about this one bar in Cleveland. So I went, and I managed to get on the showcase. I don't know how I did, because like I didn't even go through the proper channels. Like, it just so happened that the host, like the host and main person, Bill, was there and was like, oh, okay, this is how we do it in the future, but I'll give you this 5 minutes. And then I'm like, I don't know, is this like every week? And he's like, what? Like, you don't know anything? I'm like, just give me 5 minutes, So I went up and I told a couple jokes, and the room laughed then. And I'm like, I get this. This is why I'm like, this is why this feels good, and like to get off there, that I came into this and was nervous. Like, I was nervous. I had a Hawaiian shirt on and a kilt. Like, I mean, I'm very Irish, so I mean, a kilt is normal for me, but to like other people, they probably thought it was weird. But like, that doesn't matter.
I can see it now. Who is this clown?
Seriously, it's up on YouTube. Take a look at it. I'm still like, I'll still do it. I'm gonna be pulling kilts out again while the weather's still nice. So we're not.
You could be wearing one of Kelly's, right?
We're not done with that. Oh, I'm not. Absolutely, absolutely. But it was like, I went up there and I got those laughs. That was the first like room laugh. It was the first time when I got off stage that like other comics were like, hey, good set, and I was like, what? Like, what does that mean? Like, and that's what kept me coming back. And I think that's really, those firsts. I think, it's funny, we put a lot of focus on firsts in anything, right? But the truth is, those firsts only mean something if the second one is better, like more refined, more amusing to the audience than to me, right? Like, the next laugh, I don't need to chase laughs for myself. I want the audience to be like, man, I had a good time when I was there, because like, I have a good time on stage, but when I'm off stage, I'm like, oh my God, that thing called life? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like when I'm on stage, I want everybody that's out there to forget about that thing called life. You know what I mean?
And that's why people go to comedy shows. People go there to, like, kind of like the movies in the Great Depression. They go just to escape their troubles, to forget about. Or my uncle, who is a comedy fan, who was at the last show, he says it best. He goes to a comedy show. He doesn't have to worry about what's going on at home. He doesn't have to worry about what's going on in his job. He doesn't have to worry about, I've got X, Y, and Z to pay. I've got X, Y, and Z to, fix, do whatever. Da 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 da. He could just go have a good laugh, watch someone do their thing, and just enjoy himself.
And I love knowing that, because the funny part is when I'm up there, I'm having a good time, but the minute that it's over, I still go, okay, I'm glad I'm good enough to be back here again next week, because I still have to pay rent and I have to pay bills. Like,
I took the job at Calder's.
Right. You know what I mean? Like, people are looking at, like, the future. They're like, we get to, see them make us laugh, and we're up there going, whoo, good thing the room's got people in it, because if I don't make them laugh, I don't get to eat this week.
Yep.
But it's worth it. I think as we get into the interview, there's a lot to be taken from that statement. It's really fulfilling if you decide to do it for the audience.
Exactly. If you're in it for yourself, if you're in it for the fame, the fortune, it's like everything else. It's like if you're in sport, you can tell which athlete is in it for himself, not for the team. You can tell which which actor's just doing this just to add it to their resume, not to make this a good film for the audience. You can tell what comedians are in it for themselves and not to make the audience laugh.
I didn't used to see it, though. Believe it or not, like, I sometimes you don't think about it, but what brought it to my attention was how much it was like, well, how am I going to make this better overall? Where, it's like, how do you keep this from becoming a job like any other?
Mm-hmm.
And you have to put other people before yourself. And in comedy, that's a job I can do, that I can do that. It's like any other job to me just felt like I don't know how to put somebody else first because I'm worried about whether or not I'm going to be able to eat.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even with comedy, it's like, I don't know, I could stand to lose a few pounds as long as they're laughing. Like, I mean, I give myself more grace. I enjoy it. It means something to me.
As they say in my favorite TV show, Cobra Kai, man who works for passion is far richer than man who works for money.
Absolutely. Like, and most people, they'll never, you might not get there. And I wish everybody had the chance to take, because when you really find out, like, how beautiful life can be, it's like, it's crazy. Like, one of the jokes, I like to make a lot of jokes about so many of the things that we take so seriously in society, which make no sense, and it's like, why do we need to have paper straws? And they say, well, they're getting stuck in the turtles. Okay, well, stop spending money on paper straws and just teach us how to throw the plastic ones out in the correct container. Yeah. And it is, so many people we're just trained to follow this, this is what we do, this is how we have to do it. And I thought that was the way too, growing up in the 80s. I thought that was how you did it. You went to school, and if you could, you went to college, and then after that you got your job, and then you just fucking worked at it until you died,
Yeah.
Like, I was like, but it's going to work out as long as you work hard. And it's like, if you don't find something you're passionate about, you're never going to be able to make a living.
Exactly. And that's why I'm thankful for my job. It's my passion.
Absolutely.
So, but most definitely, the one thing I wanted to ask you about is what's your method for creating material? Give us like your thought process, your writing process. Just tell me like how you create a joke on a normal day.
Premises. A lot of it starts with premises. I will sit down. I spend about a half hour writing premises a day. I'll write about 100 premises. And then I will look at those 100 premises and I'll take whatever sticks out to me, like just running down the list, I then put a mark next to. And then I will, any of those that I go down again and something sticks out to me, I, will say, okay, I can flesh something out like that, and then I try to keep things short right now. And I don't know how that works sometimes because my head's always going. So I'll come up with the 5 that I like probably, and then I'll write a joke off of it. And then I'll try it out at a mic, and then I normally have to chop some words off, and because the hard part is I'll be up on stage sometimes and I'm like, I could fix this joke right here. That I'm like, part of me is like, hey, Angus, you're in the middle of the joke, idiot. And I'm like, all right, hold on. We're just going to, let's just keep going with this one. Like that actually happens. And I don't, I would like to say, I hope that happens to more people than just me. But like, that's really the process. It's like, a lot of jokes. Sometimes there's things I'll find funny. I'll write a joke. It doesn't work as well. And it's like, or other times it won't work with a specific crowd, but I'll tell the joke the next night and they love it. And it's like, so honestly, I write what I think is good. And I try not to be reckless. Like I try to use structure in writing, so just basic, sentence structure, or like make sure it's clear and there's a good setup and a punchline, and it, at least people say don't try to be funny, but I mean, you still have to inject humor, but you can't go up and force it, you know what I mean? But you have to find it.
Right.
That's the process. Just look for it and then say, okay.
Yeah. Do you ever take do you ever follow like any online courses or anything? Like, have you ever like dipped into anything like that in the past?
I have. There was are you familiar with Jerry Corley, the joke doctor?
Not really, but tell me about him.
Okay, so he runs the stand-up comedy clinic, and there's short courses. There's he has longer courses. He happened to have an in-person seminar in Vegas, and I was in Vegas, so I just, I signed up for the seminar because it wasn't expensive. And then I got there and it was just cool to learn some of the writing techniques, the structures, to know that it's like, okay, that's why what I've been trying to do makes sense, because it is, working at a magic and comedy club, I think comedians first and foremost, need to have understanding of comedy, and of basic writing structure, and it's just like a magician. Like, I don't understand magic. I'm not good with that. Like, I'd be like, here, watch me hide. But you get
Is this your card? No. Is this your card? No. You sure?
I'd be like, all right, well, it's 1 of 52,
Yeah.
like. But you get 2 magicians talking to one another and they're like, oh, have you tried this method to make, and it's like, it's really that, like, you know what I mean? There's skills, and comedy is just that. There has to be, some structure, there has to be some focus to it, because I've seen people go to open mics that don't have any structure and they wonder why it didn't work. And it's like, well, just because you ran up there and yelled a bunch of phrases that you thought were funny. It's like, that doesn't get the normal person that worked 40 hours, and wants to laugh at something. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It may be sounding funny in your head, like, oh, this is going to be hilarious. But then you go up there and it's like,
and that's a good experience. Like, you don't like it, no comic says they're going to enjoy it, but if we're all being honest about it, those can be some of the best experiences, because sometimes if you thought that joke was funny and it doesn't work, say it just falls completely flat, come up with your recovery, like shoot yourself in the foot, be like, well, that was funnier in my head or something like that, know. But then if you still think it was funny, go back and rework it. Sometimes it's one word, sometimes it's like two words or flipped, and then you're like, because have you ever done that? You're like, you come up with this joke and then you say it and you're like, I really tripped on that setup really, really bad, know. And then you're like, why didn't it work? And you're like, and then when you think about it, you're like, oh, no wonder, if I would have shortened that.
So one other thing I want to ask you about is the comedy scene from where you're from. You're from you're from this area, or you've done comedy in the Ohio area, you've done it in the Erie area. Tell me about like the scenes. Tell me about.
And I love the travel. I think that needs to be part of it. I wish it was cheaper to do because I think that's where the greatest amount of skills can be learned. I would like to see more of the Erie people in some of the Ohio gigs, and I would like to see more of the Ohio people in some of the Erie gigs. But again, it's hard because of travel. It can be it's cost prohibitive with the gas and whatnot. But I'm not in a relationship. I don't have any kids, so it's like I can travel. So, but the scene, what I think is so awesome about comedy that's different from other things, and I learned this quote from Steve Hofstetter. Have you heard of Steve Hofstetter?
I have.
He said, and I hope I'm saying it right. If I'm paraphrasing, it's still important, but no other performer's success will ever negatively impact my own. And that's like, when I thought about that, it's like, that's brilliant, because if I go up and the guy before me was great, or the lady before me was awesome, and I go up and I bomb, it's not because they were great. It's because my material sucked. So either I fix it and come back, or, I can't blame other people for my lack of successes. And I love that outlook, because then it allows me to fix my jokes that don't land right more efficiently and realize it's all here. Everybody is individual, and I love seeing the variety of comedy that comes from different places, which you see because of the different socioeconomic backgrounds and economic structures within the cities that they're part of.
Wonderful. When it comes to comedy, what are your hopes and dreams? What are your goals?
I would say simple. I want to be able to be happy making others laugh. I don't care if I'm ever, super wealthy. Would I like that to happen? Sure, it might make things easier, but it would also make me easier to give back to some that maybe didn't have the opportunities, that might have helped them, because I know that there were times in life where maybe there were opportunities that I could have, been afforded that might have helped me a little bit better, or helped others, maybe someone who could use some help at a different time, to make their life a little easier. That's what I hope to be able to do through the gift of laughter, which I love to give.
Mm-hmm. In that goal, have you ever thought of mentoring other comedians or other starters or anything, just
I don't think that there's any need to specifically put a label on it, but anybody that wants to come up and talk with me and hang out, yeah, if I'm at a show, sure. I love to share ideas. I love to laugh at other jokes that maybe somebody doesn't, and I'm not talking just because they're dirty. It's just because I look at comedy with a really open mind. And there are jokes sometimes that I'm like, it's not funny to me in the way that it's funny to you, but I get why it's funny to you. I don't know how to explain that, but it's like, it's like, I really accept everybody's idea of what a joke is. And I think that's the coolest part of comedy, is there's so many different styles, and there's no right way or wrong way to do it, as long as you don't come from a place of hate.
Exactly. What does Charlie Chaplin say? My pain may be the reason for someone's laugh, but my laugh will never be the reason for someone's pain.
Absolutely. See, it's phrases like that make what we do as comics worthwhile. You know, it's a very hard lifestyle for most people to understand, because it's like, how can how can you be happy just doing that for a living? And it's like, I couldn't be happy doing anything else.
Now, my friend, I gotta ask, is that a Boston Scally you had on you?
It is a Boston Scally hat.
I knew it. I got one of those too.
This Boston Scally is the Baker Boy. I have at current, I think, 20 Boston Scallies, and unfortunately they keep releasing really, really, really nice ones every week. But it's an addiction. But, you know, being Irish, the Scally is my cap of choice, and I have worn a lot of different ones over the years. But Boston Scally makes, and I'm not even sponsored by them, but they make a really comfortable and great product, and I really wish I was sponsored by them, because, like, their product is the best Scally out there.
Absolutely. I have one myself. I can't remember which one it is, but it's like the gray one. It's got like all those dots on the side and everything, like that material.
Okay, so that it could have, well, there's probably, it could have been the original Peaky Herringbone. Like,
it might have been. It has like, I think it's got like a guy holding a newspaper on the inside or something.
Oh, that, okay. So that one, oh, I know which one that was, but I don't remember which. So I missed the donut one, man. That was the one I was upset I missed.
So I just had to ask. I'm like, I wonder if that's a Boston Scally or not.
It is.
Love it. Love it. Boston Scally is watching this by chance. We're open to sponsorships. Just saying.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I need to cover this.
So now let's promote you, Angus. Give us your upcoming gigs. Give us places where if someone's watching this episode, they can find you. All
right. Tomorrow, actually, I'll be in Cleveland at the High and Dry Tavern for a showcase. It's 8:00 show. That's tomorrow. Friday, Saturday, I'm off this week. Sunday, Monday, I'm off. Tuesday, upcoming, I will be at the Cove in Geneva on the Lake. No, actually, I was wrong. This Friday, upcoming Friday, I will be at the Funny Farm in Niles, Ohio, 10 p.m. It's a late night mic after the headliner, and I can't remember who it was, but it's a late night mic, and I'll be there. I don't have anything coming up until next Friday, when I will be at Keller's with Josh Wolf.
Nice.
That's
nice.
That's upcoming.
Just tell me what you think about Keller's. I'm interested in that. Like,
best club in the nation. It's an unbelievable space. It's a beautiful, beautiful club. Huge potential. It's just Erie. A lot of people, there's a lot of negative things people say about Erie, but Erie is a really cool town. It's just an odd space. Like, those of us that live here, it's a service industry town. You know, you have healthcare, you have service industry, you have real estate. Like, that's what exists in Erie, you know, and it's not like shipping and things like that. So not a lot of people, I think, understand that you can come here and there's a lot to do, really, in the summertime especially, you know. And in the wintertime, Keller's is a great opportunity too, but in Erie's just a strange town sometimes with entertainment.
Yeah,
I love the club.
Town. We love our strange town, no matter what.
Absolutely.
So I got two more questions for you. To make this an official Buddycast, I always put my stamp on it at the end. The first one, as I said at the beginning of the episode, you're not a guest. You're a buddy here on Buddycast. So, in your words, what does it mean to be someone's buddy?
I like that. A buddy is somebody that you can trust. You know, a friend is somebody you can trust. A buddy is somebody that you're closer to than just a friend. And it's somebody that you're not going to let down. that's what that means. There's a lot of that thrown around. I think it's important that we bring back attention to different things that mean something, like bro, or a lot of things are just thrown around now and don't mean much. But yeah, buddies are together through thick and thin.
Absolutely. I used to say all the time, a friend is someone that you can just say, hey, let's grab a drink with, catch up. It has been a while, like let's go to this place and just have a meal or something. A buddy's the person you're going to be calling in 8 or 9 years to say, hey, I need a couple of good men up there on the altar with me.
Fair. Yeah, I get that.
So the final question I have for you, it's what's called the ultimate Buddycast buddy question. You ready for this one?
Oh yeah.
To any aspiring comedian out there watching this episode, wondering how they can get their foot in the door, enter into the comedy world, and get the same joy out of it that you've gotten throughout your career, what is your advice to them?
That is an awesome question. And honestly, the best response I can give is be yourself, be genuine, be honest, and don't give up. That's the hardest thing. I've seen people come in, bomb at a mic. I've said to them, I'm like, it's no big deal. See you next week. They don't come back next week. They're not there the week after. They're afraid. And it's like, just be who you are. If you want to be a comic, then let nothing stand in your way.
Be who you are. I love that. That's a Michael Franti song. Be who you are, nothing more, nothing less. And you'll find
I didn't know that, but I mean that's literally like be who you are. That way it'll work.
I like that advice because how many comedians also try to be other comedians? Like they think I'm going to be the next Robin Williams or Richard Pryor or something like that, and it's like, well, you're kind of comparing yourself like you're like in the minor leagues here, just starting out, and you're comparing yourself to Babe Ruth and Mickey Mantle. You know what I mean? Like,
and that's just it. Because if you set that you're going to go a certain path, if I would have told myself 20 years ago that I'd be here today talking about being able to live doing comedy, I would have told, if somebody would have said that's what you're going to be doing, Angus, I would have said, are you crazy? Like, I never would have thought it would happen. But if you really want it to happen, it will. It will.
Exactly. Well, Angus, we've come to the end of Buddycast. Thank you so much for being a buddy on Buddycast. It's always a pleasure seeing you at the club, and it was more of a pleasure having you on the show and just chatting up comedy with you.
Thank you so much, Nick.
Hey, before you go, I got 2 favors. Number 1, stick around for a minute afterwards. We'll chat off air. But number 2, I ask this to everybody that comes on Buddycast. I want you to make me a promise. Whatever you're going to do today, tomorrow, next week, next month, even next year, I want you to promise me you're going to go out and you're going to go be someone's buddy.
I could do that. I could be a lot of people's buddy in that amount of time.
Exactly. For all my buddies out there, this is my buddy Angus Thorn. Please, if you're in the Pennsylvania, Ohio area, anywhere in that region, and you see his name on the billboard, you see his name on the stage, check him out. You won't regret it. I'm your host, Nick Sorensen. Thank you for joining us on everybody's favorite show.
Well, the days are going fast. Buddy, we've got to make them last. Buddy, before they've all gone past. Buddy, tune in to Buddycast. But don't be nutty, go make it, buddy, here on Buddycast.